Well, here we are back with the Predator, and just making a couple of adjustments that found that we needed to do. One being the that heat exchanger wasn't really, well, not to say that the heat exchanger wasn't working, but it quite possibly could have been the pulley on there wasn't the right size. It was all experimental anyway, but so what I've done is gone to a 4-inch pulley on the water pump now instead of a 6-inch to speed it up considerably. And the other thing I found is there probably wasn't quite enough water in that tank there to do what it was meant to do. The level was down a little bit, but anyway, it's worth another shot. Else fails, what I do is just bypass that heat exchanger just for the summer, and over the winter I'll have another crack at it. But yeah, it's not that hard to bypass and just run the water through the motor from straight out the river. I mean, it's not like a seawater or lake water or anything like that. It's going to corrode everything, but it's only a matter of, as they call it, winterizing the motor once the summer's finished, which would mean filling it up with coolant again, which has got the rust inhibitor in it. So, but yeah, the other thing I was in the process of doing was putting another breather pipe on it, because like I've made those fuel tanks and everything, and got a couple of check valves on it, like one on each tank, and it's got crossovers and this, that and everything else, and like the check valves will suck air in so that yeah, it doesn't get a fuel blockage or whatever. But yeah, I didn't really at that stage put anything to breathe out because I didn't know what was going to happen. And you know, the top of the tank there's got a bit of a expansion chamber on it anyway and everything. But yeah, it's amazing actually how much pressure that builds up in the tank. Like it'll build up enough to fill that fuel filter from bone dry. And even when you undo the cap there, you can hear the air go hissing into it. So because each side has got a check valve on it and a like a breather pipe on the end of it with the spark arresters and everything on it, I've turned one of the check valves around so it'll blow air out of the tank as it builds up pressure. But last thing you want on a motor like that with straight out exhaust is fuel vapor. And so I thought, well, they talk about putting carbon canisters and stuff on them for breather pipes and stuff like that, so that's what I'm going to do. I'll show you in a sec. So I'm now underneath the side of the boat. Obviously that's the top of the fuel tank there, and that's one of the like a 12mm 1/2-inch check valve that I turned around the other way, so now it'll blow air out, whereas before it would only suck air in to yeah, so it didn't suck the tank in, or you know, you need air going into a tank when you're drawing air out. So I'll get out from under here and I'll show you the breather pipe on the end of this, under the bow. So with great difficulty I've managed to scramble up to the front of it, and that's the breather tube on the end of that hose that comes out of the fuel tank. So there's actually one of them on each side, and it's a bit hard to see, but it's got a screen mesh in it that they class as a spark arrestor, so they're not supposedly meant to catch on fire, but yeah, I don't trust it, so the next step is to put that carbon canister in that line there, so it'll draw well, the air will push out of that carbon canister and hopefully take some of the, well, all of the fumes out of the air that comes out of the tank. I'll get back up onto 2 legs and we'll have a look at the carbon canister I'm putting on there. Well, that was an effort, but I got there. Alright, so that was just a piece of like brass saw thread, 150mm long, but I sort of cut it down a bit off of that, so I didn't even measure, I just took a guess. Yeah, with 2 hose tail ends on it, so that'll just go into the that line that we were looking at before. Each end of that's got a bit of steel wool, so the carbon, that's just carbon they use in fish tank filters. I'll sort of give that a go. But yeah, it's a bit tight, but there we go. I can't see why that's not going to work, but yeah, it's just got a piece of that steel wool each end of it. I only packed that before. I'm going to run that through a screen or whatever and get all the dust and that out of it, but yeah, like you can blow through that alright, no problem at all. And because it's got all the carbon in there, well, as I say, that should take some of the smell of fuel out of the air. I mean, as it is, I haven't smelled any since I've turned that check valve around, but then it hasn't sort of been that hot. The other thing I'd do is put a check valve on the fuel line, because once I undo the filler cap there, that'll actually drain back into the tank out of there through the fuel pump and that. So, but then as it heats up, with that cap done up, that'll fill right up from being empty, which is not really what you want. So anyway, hopefully that carbon canister will do the job. You might notice that it's been machined down in the center there. I just wanted to lighten it off a little bit so it's hasn't got all that weight hanging on the hose, because you know, periodically I guess you want to take the ends off it and yeah, check the carbon in there and repack it. But technically speaking, it shouldn't get fuel in there anyway, so that I would have thought would last for years. The other thing I've got to do is probably move that seat a bit further forward when you're on the down pedal under there, although I haven't really had much of a chance to use it. But yeah, it's just a little bit too far forward to, you got to sit forward on the seat, so obviously the seat can come forward. Anyway, there was just a couple of things like that needed doing, so hopefully we'll be back on the water on the weekend and give it a try, see what happens. So anyway, there'll be another video of that.